let's move on. Let's go to New Mexico State. Let's go to the Aggies. Gosh, these last two seasons have been unbelievable for New Mexico State. Jerry freaking Kill is a great head coach. If that wasn't already stated, and people didn't already know that, Jerry Kill's a great head coach. He steps away from the game of football once again for the second time, actually, because of health reasons, and leaves it in the hands of his, what I believe was his wide receiver coach,
Yep.
Tony Sanchez, University of Mexico State, or New Mexico State University alum, Tony Sanchez.
hmm By the way, look at
So
that shirt. Look at that picture of him. Is Bishop Gorman. We love that. We love that.
I know, can you believe
Recruiting
that?
ties. Recruiting. Powerhouse Bishop Gorman.
You think they're gonna get a lot of Bishop Gorman guys over there at New Mexico State?
I don't know. I don't know any Zachariah branches that are heading us at New Mexico State, but you know what? It helps with recruiting. Other high school coaches will respect that in the area and say, "Hey, you want to play for a guy like that? I wouldn't mind my kid playing for a guy like that." You mentioned, yeah, Jerry Kill stepping down, he's going to be actually taking an off the field role at Vanderbilt, maybe a little bit less stress on his health. Obviously, I think that's a big deal with it. Obviously, he's got places in Vanderbilt or in Nashville as well. Yeah, Sanchez going to be the 36th head coach for New Mexico State. He's been there for 2 years as a wide receiver coach, but you mentioned he was an alma mater there. He played there for a couple years. Also was an assistant coach there during his college days as well. This is a really interesting hire.
Yeah. Fun fact, he actually coached Ronnie Stanley in high school.
Wow. Yep.
So
Yep.
Pro Bowl offensive lineman.
Stud
Then here's
himself.
also a name drop that I wrote down, but I had to write it down because it's such a name drop. Ready for this one? Xavier Grimble. Yep, you Steelers fans out there. Yep, he coached Xavier Grimble in high school. But yeah, I mean Tony Sanchez, he's got an okay resume. Now it didn't work at UNLV. All right. But let me defend Tony Sanchez here for a second. The program of UNLV has been to 5 bowl games its entirety. And one of them, their only double-digit win season ever was with Randall Cunningham playing quarterback, which also led to the scandal where they happened to be playing ineligible players that were not eligible to play. You can read about that one on your own. But let's just say that program at UNLV is not like what Barry Odom did last year was an anomaly. An
Yes.
anomaly. So I don't blame Tony Sanchez. Yeah, sure, he never made a bowl game. Sure. All right. Let's kick this guy while he's down. All right. But I don't know, man. Who else are you gonna get at New Mexico? Like, what would have been your hire at New Mexico State? Like, it's hard to say. Like,
It, it's a really tough spot because we talked about it with Alabama and Kalen DeBoer. Like having a hire that late in the cycle is brutal. It's brutal. And Jerry Kill, yes, we knew he was going to step down, but also you look at A&M. Look at A&M, right? They had guys. It was November, early November, and they'd fired Jimbo already, so they can figure out staff and whatnot, warn the players, and so it kind of like it's old news by the time the portal hits, and you can hit the ground running. Right with New Mexico State, Tony Sanchez, you almost had to go with a guy on staff and promote from within, and he's obviously very qualified. Has had a coach on the West Coast before, right in the Mountain Time Zone there at UNLV. I like this. I do like this. He was also a guy that was with Jerry Kill at TCU, right? For
yeah,
for a year there, and
was
so
he as an
that's
analyst
obviously
there? I believe he was like an analyst
yeah,
there,
that
offensive
sounds right.
analyst.
So yeah, it's a good thing for both of them. You keep continuity. You had success with Jerry Kill like you've never had before at New Mexico State, and you continue to ride that momentum with Tony Sanchez.
Yeah, I do think what I do really like too. Jerry Kill did a good job bringing in a good staff as well, like he always does. I do like one hire I'll point out, Joe Morris, defense coordinator. He was a defense coordinator this past year at Sam Houston State. Sam Houston State had a really good defense this past year. Very good. And they were coming up
Mhm.
from the FCS level, and they had the number one defense in the CUSA.
And not a lot was good about that team, right? They did not
No,
have a lot of great stuff on that Bearcats team.
No,
It was that defense.
it's a defense that kept them in game. Like you had when they went like 0-7, was it to start the season? And you're like, oh, when are they going to get their first win? They had many opportunities to do it because of that defense, right? And that
Hmm.
was Jerry Kill's thing too. Like New Mexico State doesn't have the talent to have an elite defense, but he coached them well enough to like have a top 80 defense. Like, they had a top
Hmm.
80 defense just about every year. The only thing different about last year was why it was so special. You had a good quarterback in Diego Pavia and kind of an explosive offense there. You're not going to have that luxury next year. You're not going to have that luxury next year because I believe Diego Pavia was in the portal, correct? But
I'll double check that right now.
so it's gonna be tough because sometimes these smaller programs, you just you're just not historically a good program. You don't have the money. You're in a weird spot geographically. You got to just coach a good defense. You got to have a good defensive coach, and then you just got to have a quarterback every few years, right? So what is the expectations for New Mexico State? They're different than the other two teams that we covered. We just talked about Alabama and their expectations. As you could believe it or not, they're larger expectations than New Mexico State and Troy's expectations. New Mexico State's expectations. Making bowl games isn't like an every year thing. It's not. It's not. Do you have an expectation for New Mexico State?
Yeah, every 3 years, make a bowl game, be competitive in the CUSA. I do think it helps moving to the CUSA, which is not a super strong conference. I do think there are wins to be had in conference. That's why making a bowl game probably becomes a little bit more common than you've had in your previous existence. I mean, Doug Martin made a bowl game in 2017 on a 7-6 record, right? And that bought him a couple years of really bad football for you down there in New Mexico State. So like that that's how
Like
that's how important it
very
was.
bad years of New Mexico State football.
Yes, and so Jared Kill goes to two straight bowl games and win 10 games this year. Um, yeah, and obviously, yeah, I think that's it. I do think the staff he put together. You mentioned the DC. I think the OC, right? Jaleel Muhammad Langford. I hope I butchered that. I hope I didn't butcher that name. He's got an awesome story. He was the running backs coach last year in college. Right back in college, he played both sides of the ball at Wyoming. He started at running back, was their leading rusher, gets hurt for the season, then changed to a linebacker, and a year later is their leading tackler. Right, that's awesome. I love that guy. I love that grit there. Anything you need from my team, I got you, kind of guy. I assume he'll run a similar offense to Jerry Kill, which was pretty awesome and very like fun and new for this USA, which is important at a place like that with the lack of talent that they do have there. The running backs coach, I would be remiss if I didn't shout him out. David Cobb, go for legend, right? Getting his first running back gig there in Division I football. This is awesome for him. He was obviously very famous, very good Big Ten running back in the early 2010s, I believe, for Jerry Kill, if I'm doing my math right there, Gopher wise, which is a pretty full circle thing there. And yeah, they've been awful. New Mexico State has been awful for a long time, and Jared Kill kind of surged that program and continue that expectation, continue that to push the expectations up closer to that bowl wins, closer to 5 to 6 wins a year, 7, and then pop for an 8 win year, whatever when the CUSA is down. And obviously making a bowl game will be impressive, right? But try to stay at that middle half of that CUSA and not fall below that. Let's recruit a little bit better than Jerry Kill even did, and let's not get decimated by the portal every year.
Yeah, and before they moved to the CUSA this year, I would have said that the expectation is 4 wins. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's legitimately the expectation. But I think it's raised. I think bowl games are in sight because you play the CUSA schedule and you can catch Middle Tennessee State, right? Especially they got a new coach there, Derek Mason. You can catch maybe Western Kentucky in an off game where their offense isn't as high flying as they want it to be. Maybe you can catch a Sam Houston. You can catch a Kennesaw State. You can catch some of these lower tier teams and you can win those ball games, I think. So I'm gonna set the expectation at a bowl game. Well, I'll do what you did, a bowl game every 3 years. And I think Tony Sanchez will meet those expectations.
Mm-hmm.
Believe it or not, despite how terrible UNLV went for him, I think I think he can get it done. I think he can get it done in this conference. I think it's easier to get done. So I'll give it a B plus higher. If he's Jerry Kill's
Oh,
guy, and if he's a New Mexico State guy, he's my guy. That's what I'll
yeah.
say.
All right. I love that. I love that for New Mexico State. I'm sure that those fans are happy right now listening to that. I'm gonna go B, slightly lower than you, but I do think this is still a good hire for New Mexico State. Right. Let's be honest with what the reality of the program is and the reality of the expectations and what can be accomplished there. And what Jerry Kill did there, don't let that fool you. We talked about that. Like 10 wins is ridiculous. Beating Auburn is ridiculous. You're not going to do that in a bye
Second
game.
time in program history. Last time was 1960.
Yeah, it was super impressive there. It sucks that he had to retire. Obviously, he can't capture that momentum. We'll see if Tony Sanchez can. I do think more times than not, he will he will do well in this job here in New Mexico State. We'll see how he does recruiting. It sounds like he's kind of a guy that like I bet he'd be happy, right, at New Mexico State. If he wins a couple bowl games there, they're gonna give him a good contract, right? They're gonna give him stability there. And I think he can like that and build and grow a program and move into that top half of the CUSA.
If he wins a bowl game, he's getting a gigantic extension.
Yes, especially this year. And it sucks. Obviously, Pavila, it sounds like it's Washington State and another school is there for him. Would suck to lose him as he's a dog. He peed on the New Mexico logo, right? Which was awesome. That's the kind of guy you love for the Aggies down there in the CUSA. I'm sorry there, you're drinking some water. But no, this is good. I think this will work out for New Mexico State. Let us know how you're feeling about this because obviously we did our research, but I didn't know a ton about him. And obviously you guys know better than we do as New Mexico State fans. How does the program feel? How do fans feel about this? Was he the right guy? Internal hire. It usually is a good thing. I'm sure Jerry Kill gave the approval. Like you mentioned, if he's a Jerry Kill guy, he's an our guy. Um, so yeah, we'll see, but we'll see though.